Hello, and welcome to this gentle space we're creating together tonight. As you settle into wherever you are right now, whether it's your bed, a comfortable chair, or any place where you can simply be, I want you to know that you're exactly where you need to be in this moment. Maybe you're here because you've been wrestling with something that's hard to talk about. Maybe you're lying there wondering why physical encounters that promise connection and pleasure so often leave you feeling more empty, more alone, more disconnected from yourself than before. Maybe you've noticed this pattern where the very thing that's supposed to bring you closer to another person somehow creates more distance, more confusion, more of that aching sense that something essential is missing. If any of this resonates with you, I want you to know that what you're experiencing isn't a flaw in your character or a sign that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's not about being too sensitive, too needy, or having impossible expectations. What you're noticing is actually your deeper wisdom speaking, your authentic self recognizing that there's a profound difference between physical encounter and true intimacy, between momentary pleasure and lasting fulfillment. Tonight, you have complete permission to explore these feelings without judgment, without needing to fix anything, without pressure to come to any particular conclusions. You're allowed to feel empty after encounters that others might celebrate. You're allowed to want something deeper than what purely physical connections can provide. You're allowed to honor the part of you that knows the difference between being desired and being truly seen, between being wanted and being genuinely valued. There's no rush tonight, no agenda other than understanding yourself with greater compassion. You don't need to change anything about your past experiences or make any decisions about future ones. You're simply here to breathe, to listen, and to perhaps discover that your feelings of emptiness aren't a problem to be solved, but wisdom to be honored. The experience of feeling empty, the what should theoretically be fulfilling encounters, is far more common than most people realize. In our culture, we're often told that physical attraction and sexual connection should be enough, that the pursuit of pleasure is inherently fulfilling, that desire itself is the answer to loneliness. Yet many people find themselves in a confusing place where their lived experience doesn't match these cultural messages. You might recognize this pattern, the anticipation, the excitement, the promise of connection, then the encounter itself, which might be pleasant or even intense in the moment. But afterward, instead of feeling satisfied or connected, there's this hollow sensation, this sense that something crucial was missing. It's not that the experience was necessarily bad or wrong, but rather that it touched the surface while leaving the depths untouched. What you're experiencing has deep roots in human psychology and our fundamental need for authentic connection. Carl Jung spoke about the difference between our persona, the face we show the world, and our authentic self, the deeper truth of who we are. When encounters remain at the level of persona, when they're about performance, validation, or even just physical pleasure without emotional intimacy, they can't reach the places in us that most need nourishment. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, helps us understand that humans have a fundamental need for secure connection, for being seen, understood, and valued for who we truly are. When our encounters, even consensual and pleasurable ones, don't include this element of genuine seeing and being seen, our attachment system remains unsatisfied, leaving us with that familiar sense of emptiness. This isn't about moralizing physical connection or suggesting that all encounters must lead to deep relationship. Rather, it's about understanding that when we're seeking connection, validation, or healing through purely physical means, we're often asking the body to do work that requires the heart, mind, and spirit as well. The emptiness you feel isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It might actually be your inner wisdom recognizing that you're capable of and deserving of something more nourishing. It might be your authentic self saying, I exist beyond just my physical form, and I need to be met there too. It might be your nervous system recognizing the difference between temporary stimulation and genuine safety, between being wanted for what you can provide and being cherished for who you are. Many people find themselves in patterns where they seek through physical connection what can only be found through emotional intimacy, where they try to fill through the body what can only be satisfied through genuine understanding, acceptance, and care. This isn't a character flaw, but a very human confusion about where different types of fulfillment actually come from. What's particularly challenging, that lust and physical attraction aren't inherently problematic. They're natural, healthy parts of human experience. The issue arises when we unconsciously expect them to meet needs they weren't designed to meet, when we seek through them the deeper nourishment that comes from being truly known, understood, and valued. Tonight, we're going to explore this pattern, not to shame or judge it, but to understand it with compassion. We're going to look at how this might have developed as a strategy, how it might have served you in some ways, while leaving you unfulfilled in others. Most importantly, we're going to honor the part of you that recognizes the difference between surface connection and soul-deep intimacy, between being desired and being truly cherished. As we begin to explore this tender territory together, I want to create a sense of safety and gentleness around our approach tonight. The patterns we're discussing often carry shame, confusion, or self-judgment, and it's important that we move through this exploration with great care for your tender heart. Take a moment now to notice your breathing. You don't need to change it, just become aware of it. Notice how your body naturally knows how to breathe, how to take in what it needs, and release what it doesn't. This natural wisdom of your body, this ability to distinguish between what nourishes and what depletes, exists in all areas of your life, including in your relationships and connections with others. As you breathe, imagine creating a protective bubble around yourself, a space where you can explore difficult feelings without judgment, where you can acknowledge painful patterns without attacking yourself for having them. This is a space where your confusion is welcome, where your emptiness is seen as information rather than failure, where your longing for something deeper is honored as wisdom rather than dismissed as neediness. The approach we're taking tonight is gentle and non-pathological. We're not here to diagnose or fix you because you're not broken. We're here to understand, with compassion, how you've learned to seek connection and where that seeking might be missing the mark. We're here to appreciate the courage it takes to acknowledge when something isn't working, even when that something is socially accepted or even celebrated. If at any time during our exploration you feel overwhelmed or activated, you have complete permission to pause, to breathe, to remind yourself that you're safe right now. You're not in any of those past encounters. You're here, in this moment, with the power to choose how much you engage with this material and how quickly you move through it. Our intention tonight isn't to eliminate desire or to shame physical connection. It's to help you understand the difference between connections that nourish your whole self and those that might satisfy only part of you while leaving the rest hungry. It's to honor your deep knowing that you deserve to be met not just as a body, but as a complete human being with a heart that longs to be seen, a mind that wants to be understood, and a spirit that needs to be cherished. As we move forward, we'll be exploring this pattern as something that developed for understandable reasons, something that might have served you in certain ways, while ultimately leaving you unfulfilled. We'll look at it through the lens of protection, Understanding how seeking connection through physical means might have felt safer than risking the vulnerability of emotional intimacy. Let your breathing continue to be your anchor as we gently move into exploring the specific ways this pattern might show up in your life. Always remembering that awareness is the first step toward choice, and choice is the pathway to freedom. At the heart of tonight's exploration lies a fundamental truth that might feel both comforting and challenging. Your emptiness after physical encounters isn't a bug in your system. It's a feature. It's your deeper self communicating something essential about what you truly need for fulfillment and connection. Think of it this way. If you were deeply thirsty and someone offered you beautifully colored water that looked refreshing but contained no actual H2O, you might enjoy the taste momentarily, but your thirst would remain. Your body would keep signaling that something crucial was missing. The emptiness you feel after encounters that remain purely physical is similar. Your emotional and spiritual self recognizing that, while something pleasant may have occurred, your deeper thirst for a genuine connection remains unquenched. This pattern often develops as a form of protection. Physical connection can feel safer than emotional vulnerability. It can provide temporary validation, momentary closeness, and the illusion of intimacy without requiring the scariest step of allowing someone to see and potentially reject your authentic self. In this way, seeking connection through lust becomes a strategy, a way of getting close to the experience of intimacy while maintaining protective distance from its risks. But here's what's beautiful about your experience of emptiness. It's proof that you're wired for something deeper. It's evidence that you have the capacity for and desire for authentic intimacy. Your dissatisfaction isn't a problem. It's a compass pointing toward what you truly need. Many people can engage in physical encounters and feel completely satisfied if that's genuinely what they're seeking, but for those who find themselves empty afterward, it's often because they're unconsciously seeking emotional intimacy, spiritual connection, or deep validation through physical means. It's like trying to satisfy hunger by looking at pictures of food, the system being activated but not truly fed. The metaphor we'll be working with tonight is that of a deep well. Your truest self is like a well that needs specific kinds of nourishment to be truly satisfied. Physical pleasure might create ripples on the surface of this well, might even feel good in the moment, but it can't reach the depths where your real thirst lives. That depth can only be reached by the living water of being truly seen, understood, accepted, and cherished for who you really are. This doesn't mean that physical connection is wrong, or that it can't be part of fulfilling relationships. Rather, it means understanding that when physical connection is separated from emotional intimacy, from genuine care and understanding, it often leaves the deeper parts of us untouched. And UNFED. As we move into exploring the specific patterns and beliefs that might be driving this cycle, remember that we're approaching this as curious observers of your inner world, not as judges. We're here to understand how you learn to seek what you need and how you might expand your strategies to include approaches that can actually reach those deep places in you that long to be known and cherished. Your emptiness is not your enemy. Tonight, we discover how it might be your guide toward the authentic connection your soul truly craves. Maybe you've experienced that moment when you're getting ready to meet someone, and there's this electric anticipation in the air. Your heart is racing, your mind is spinning with possibilities, and there's this deep hope that tonight will be different, that this connection will finally fill that persistent ache inside you. You spend extra time getting ready, checking yourself in the mirror, imagining how the evening might unfold. There's a part of you that whispers, maybe this time I'll feel complete. And then the encounter happens. Maybe it's passionate, maybe it's tender, maybe it's exactly what you thought you wanted in the moment. Your body responds. There's pleasure, there's intensity, there's that temporary escape from the everyday weight of being yourself. For those moments, you feel alive, desired, wanted. There's this rush of validation that someone finds you attractive, that someone chose you, that you're capable of creating this kind of connection. But then comes the afterward. Maybe it's immediate, maybe it's the next morning, maybe it's in the quiet moments when you're alone again. Instead of the satisfaction you expected, instead of feeling more connected to yourself or to the other person, there's this hollow sensation. It's not regret exactly, and it's not shame, though those might be present too. It's more like arriving at a destination you've been traveling toward 4 hours, only to discover that it's not actually where you wanted to go. You might find yourself lying there, maybe next to someone who's now a stranger again, maybe alone, in your own bed, wondering why you feel more isolated than before. There's this confusion, because everything went according to plan. The encounter was consensual and possibly even enjoyable, but your soul feels untouched, your heart feels unmet, your deepest self feels just as hungry as it was before, perhaps. You recognize the pattern of scrolling through dating apps or social media, seeking that next connection, that next possibility. There's this constant searching, this sense that the right person or the right encounter will finally provide what you're looking for. You might find yourself in conversations that quickly turn sexual, or in situations where the physical connection develops rapidly while the emotional connection remains surface level. Maybe you've noticed how you can be physically intimate with someone and yet feel like you're performing a role, like you're not really present as your authentic self. There's this disconnect between what your body is doing and what your heart is feeling, between the intimacy of the physical act and the loneliness of not being truly seen or known. Or perhaps you've experienced that moment of clarity, usually after an encounter, where you realize that what you were really seeking wasn't physical pleasure, but emotional connection, not sexual validation, but genuine acceptance. You wanted to be chosen not just for your body, but for your mind, your heart, your quirks, your dreams, your vulnerabilities. You wanted to matter to someone, to be seen and valued for who you really are. That moment when you realize you've been asking your body to do the work that only your heart can do, seeking through physical connection what can only be found through emotional intimacy. It's like being incredibly hungry and trying to satisfy that hunger by smelling food, getting close to what you need, but never quite reaching it. Why does this happen? Why do we find ourselves in these patterns where we seek connection through physical means, only to end up feeling more disconnected than before? The answer isn't that you're broken or that you want too much. The answer lies in understanding that human beings are wired for multiple types of connection, and when we try to meet complex emotional and spiritual needs through purely physical means, something essential gets lost in translation. Your body can experience pleasure, but it can't experience being understood. Your physical self can feel desired, but it can't feel truly valued. Your sexuality can be validated, but your personhood might remain unseen. When we're longing for the deeper forms of connection, for intimacy that includes emotional safety, intellectual understanding, and spiritual recognition, purely physical encounters can feel like they're mocking our deeper needs rather than meeting them. The emptiness you feel isn't a sign that you're ungrateful or that you expect too much from physical connection. It's a sign that you're a complex human being with needs that extend beyond the physical realm. It's your inner wisdom recognizing that what happened was pleasant but incomplete, that your whole self wasn't invited to the encounter. That essential parts of you remained hungry and unmet. This pattern often develops because physical connection can feel safer than emotional vulnerability. It's easier to share your body than to share your fears, your dreams, your insecurities, your authentic self. Physical intimacy can provide temporary closeness without the risk of emotional rejection, but this safety comes at a cost, the cost of never quite reaching the deeper satisfaction that comes from being known and chosen for who you truly are. Let me tell you about Maya, a woman who lived in a beautiful village nestled between rolling hills and a crystal clear lake. Maya was known throughout the village for her radiant beauty and her infectious laugh. People were drawn to her like moths to a flame, and she rarely lacked for attention or companionship. But Maya carried within her a secret that she barely acknowledged even to herself. Despite being surrounded by people who desired her, despite having more romantic encounters than she could count, she felt profoundly alone. Each night, she would return to her cottage by the lake, and despite the day's connections and adventures, she would sit by her window and feel as though she were the only person in the world. Maya had learned early in life that her beauty was her currency, her way of ensuring that people would want to be near her. She had become expert at reading what others desired from her and providing it. She could be mysterious when someone was intrigued by complexity, playful when they wanted lightness, passionate when they sought intensity. But in all these encounters, she began to realize that she was never quite herself. The lake outside her cottage was deep and mysterious, with layers that extended far below the surface. Sometimes, Maya would sit by its shore and watch how the sunlight played on the water's surface, creating beautiful patterns and reflections. The surface was lovely, constantly changing and engaging, but Maya found herself wondering about the depths below, about the life that existed in the quiet darkness far beneath the dancing light. One evening, after a particularly passionate encounter with a handsome traveler who had been passing through the village, Maya sat by the lake feeling more empty than she had ever felt before. The traveler had been attentive, skilled, and had made her feel beautiful and desired. The physical connection had been intense and pleasurable, but as she watched him leave the next morning, she realized that he knew nothing about her love of reading poetry by candlelight, her fear of thunderstorms, her dream of traveling to distant mountains, or the way she talked to the birds that visited her garden. In the dream, Maya found herself sharing things she had never told anyone. She spoke about her childhood, about the loneliness she had carried for so long, about her fear that she was only lovable for her beauty. And in the dream, this person listened with genuine interest, not waiting for their turn to speak or looking for an opening to move toward physical intimacy, but truly hearing her and finding her inner world as fascinating as her outer appearance. When Maya woke from the dream, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, a sense of being truly seen and understood. Even if it had only been in a dream, she realized that what she had been seeking through all her encounters was this feeling of being known, of having someone be curious about her depths, rather than just her surface dot. Maya began to understand that her emptiness after physical encounters wasn't because the encounters were bad or wrong, but because they were incomplete. They touched only the surface of who she was, leaving her deeper self unmet and unknown. She had been offering her body as a substitute for her soul, her sexuality as a replacement for her full humanity. This realization was both liberating and terrifying. It meant that to find the connection she truly craved, she would need to risk more than just physical intimacy. She would need to risk emotional vulnerability, the possibility of being seen and rejected not just for her body, but for her mind, her heart, her authentic self. Maya began to change how she approached connections. Instead of immediately moving toward physical intimacy, she started asking questions, sharing thoughts, revealing pieces of her inner world. She discovered that while this approach meant fewer encounters, the connections she did make were far more nourishing. She found that when someone was genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings, when they saw and appreciated her complexity, the physical intimacy that followed felt completely different, like the natural expression of a deeper connection, rather than a substitute for it. The lake outside Maya's cottage became her teacher. She learned that just as the lake's beauty came not just from its surface, but from its depths, her own worth came not just from her physical appearance, but from the complexity of her inner world. She learned that true intimacy required someone willing to dive below the surface, and that she deserved to be known and chosen for all of who she was, not just the parts that were immediately visible. Maya's story teaches us that the emptiness we feel after surface-level encounters isn't a judgment on those encounters themselves, but a recognition that we are complex beings with depths that long to be explored and understood. When we seek through physical connection alone what can only be found through emotional, intellectual, and spiritual intimacy, we will always feel as though something essential is missing. The beautiful surface of the lake and the mysterious depths below both have their place in the complete picture. But if we only ever experience the surface, we miss the richness and nourishment that come from the deeper waters. Maya learned that she didn't have to choose between physical and emotional intimacy, but that the physical connection was most fulfilling when it grew from and included the emotional connection. Her emptiness had been her compass, pointing her toward what she truly needed. Your emptiness can be your compass too, guiding you toward the kind of connection that honors all of who you are. As Maya discovered by the lake, the emptiness we feel after encounters that remain at the surface level isn't a personal failing, but a recognition of our deeper needs. This emptiness often stems from beliefs we've developed about how connection works, about what we're worthy of, and about how to keep ourselves safe while still seeking intimacy. In the next part of our journey together, we'll gently explore the belief systems that might be driving these patterns, understanding them not as flaws to be fixed, but as protective strategies that once served us, but might now be limiting our access to the deeper connection we crave. As we settle deeper into this exploration, let's gently examine the first belief that often underlies the pattern of seeking connection through physical means while feeling empty afterward. This belief whispers to us that sharing our bodies is safer than sharing our hearts, that physical intimacy carries less risk than emotional vulnerability. This belief doesn't develop in a vacuum. It often has its roots in early experiences where emotional openness led to hurt, rejection, or disappointment. Maybe you learned as a child that expressing your needs or feelings resulted in criticism, dismissal, or being told you were too much or too sensitive. Perhaps you witnessed adults in your life who struggled with emotional intimacy, who were more comfortable expressing love through actions rather than words, through physical affection rather than emotional presence. In many families, physical affection like hugs, kisses, or playful touch might have been the primary way love was expressed, while emotional conversations were rare or uncomfortable. This can create a template where physical connection becomes the familiar language of intimacy, while emotional sharing feels foreign or unsafe. Or maybe you experienced early heartbreak, where opening your heart, sharing your dreams, or expressing your authentic feelings led to rejection or betrayal. Your protective system, wisely trying to prevent future hurt, might have concluded that keeping emotional intimacy separate from physical connection would allow you to experience some form of closeness while protecting your most vulnerable parts. from potential harm. This belief manifests in subtle but powerful ways in adult relationships. You might find yourself comfortable being physically naked with someone, but terrified of being emotionally naked. You can share your body, but struggle to share your fears, your dreams, your insecurities, your authentic thoughts and feelings. There's this unconscious calculation that physical rejection, while painful, is somehow less devastating than having your inner world seen and rejected. You might notice that you're drawn to encounters where emotional distance is built into the structure, situations where the temporary nature means you won't have to risk the deeper vulnerability that comes with ongoing emotional intimacy. One-night encounters, friends with benefits arrangements, or relationships that remain primarily physical can feel safer because they don't require you to show up as your full self. The protective logic of this belief is actually quite sophisticated. Physical intimacy can provide some of the neurochemical benefits of connection: the oxytocin release, the sense of being desired, the temporary escape from loneliness, without requiring you to risk the parts of yourself that feel most fragile. It's like being able to visit the neighborhood of intimacy without having to actually move in and make yourself at home. But here's where this protective strategy starts to work against you. While physical connection can provide temporary relief from loneliness, it can't provide the deeper satisfaction that comes from being known and accepted for who you truly are. Your nervous system might get some of the benefits of connection, but your heart remains hungry, your mind unmet, your authentic self unseen. This belief also creates a kind of double emptiness. Not only do you feel empty because your deeper need for emotional intimacy isn't being met, but you also start to feel disconnected from your own emotional world. When you consistently separate physical pleasure from emotional presence, you can lose touch with your own feelings, your own needs, your own inner landscape. You might find yourself going through the motions of physical intimacy while your emotional self feels like it's watching from a distance, protected but also isolated. This protective dissociation can leave you feeling like you're not fully present in your own life, like you're experiencing connection, but not really participating in it with your whole self. The compassionate understanding here is that this belief developed as a brilliant protective strategy. Your system learned to get some of your connection needs met while protecting your most vulnerable parts from potential harm. This isn't a character flaw, but an adaptation, a way your psyche learned to navigate a world where emotional vulnerability might have felt too risky. But as with all protective strategies, this one comes with costs. The safety you gain by keeping emotional intimacy separate from physical connection is also the barrier that prevents you from experiencing the deep satisfaction that comes from being fully known and chosen. The same walls that protect you from potential hurt also keep out the nourishment that your soul is seeking. Your emptiness after physical encounters is actually your authentic self letting you know that while your protective strategy is working to keep you safe, it's also keeping you from the deeper connection you truly crave. It's not that you need to abandon this protective belief entirely, but rather that you might be ready to expand it, to experiment with allowing small amounts of emotional vulnerability into your connections, and noticing that your adult self has resources and resilience that your younger self didn't have when this belief was formed. This belief served you when emotional vulnerability felt too dangerous, but it might be ready for an update now that you're in a different stage of life, with more awareness, more choice, and more ability to protect yourself while still allowing yourself to be seen. The second belief that often drives the cycle of seeking connection through physical means relates to how we've learned to measure our value and worth. Deep in many of our psyches lives the belief that being desired is proof of our worthiness, that sexual attraction validates our value as human beings, that our desirability is directly connected to our lovability. This belief often has its roots in early experiences where love felt conditional, where approval and affection seemed to depend on external factors rather than on your inherent worth as a person. Maybe you grew up in an environment where praise was primarily focused on your appearance, your achievements, or your ability to please others, rather than on your intrinsic value as a human being. In our culture, we're bombarded with messages that equate worth with desirability, that suggest our value is determined by whether others find us attractive, whether we can capture and maintain attention, whether we can inspire desire in others. Social media amplifies this with its focus on appearance, its metrics of likes and validation, its endless opportunities for comparison with others. For many people, especially those who discovered early that they could reliably generate desire in others, this becomes a primary source of self-esteem. Being wanted feels like proof that you matter, that you're valuable, that you have something important to offer the world. Sexual attraction becomes a form of validation, a way of confirming that you're worthy of love and attention. This belief creates a particular kind of vulnerability to emptiness after physical encounters, because the validation you receive is temporary and surface level. Being desired for your physical appearance or sexual energy provides a brief boost to your sense of worth, but it doesn't touch the deeper question of whether you're valuable for who you truly are beyond what you can provide physically. You might recognize this pattern where you feel most confident and valuable when someone is pursuing you, when you're in the early stages of attraction, where desire is high and intense, but as the novelty wears off, as the initial sexual excitement stabilizes, you start to feel uncertain about your worth again. Without the constant feed of fresh desire, your sense of value begins to waver. This creates a cycle where you need regular validation through being desired to maintain your sense of self-worth. You might find yourself seeking new connections, not just for companionship or pleasure, but for the ego boost that comes from being wanted, from confirming that you still have the power to attract others, that you're still valuable in this particular way. The challenge with this belief is that it places your sense of worth outside of yourself, dependent on others' responses to you rather than rooted in your inherent value as a human being. When your self-esteem depends on being desired, you become vulnerable to feeling worthless during periods when you're not actively being pursued, when you're single, when you're aging, or when you're going through changes that affect your conventional attractiveness. This belief also creates pressure to maintain your desirability, to continue being the version of yourself that attracts others, even if that version doesn't fully represent who you authentically are. You might find yourself performing sexuality, exaggerating certain aspects of your personality, or suppressing parts of yourself that don't fit the image that generates desire in others. The emptiness that follows physical encounters often stems from the recognition that while you've received validation for your desirability, you haven't received recognition for your full humanity. Someone wanted your body, was attracted to your sexual energy, but they didn't necessarily see or value your mind, your heart, your dreams, your struggles, your complexity. There's also a deeper layer to this belief that connects to our fundamental human need to feel significant, to matter, to have an impact on others. Being desired can feel like proof that you matter, that you have power, that you can affect others in meaningful ways. But when this is your primary source of feeling significant, you're building your sense of importance on a foundation that's inherently unstable and temporary. Your nervous system knows the difference between being valued for what you can provide and being valued for who you are. When someone desires you for your physical attributes or sexual energy, part of you recognizes that this desire is conditional, that it depends on your continued ability to provide what they're seeking. This creates an underlying anxiety about your worth, a fear that if you can't maintain their desire, you'll lose their interest and, with it, your sense of value. The protective function of this belief is that it provides a way to feel valuable and important in a world where intrinsic worth can feel abstract or uncertain. Being desired is concrete, measurable, immediate. It provides real-time feedback about your value in a way that can feel more reliable than trying to trust in your inherent worth as a person. But like all protective beliefs, this one comes with costs. When your sense of worth depends on being desired, you become vulnerable to pursuing connections that validate your desirability rather than connections that nourish your full self. You might find yourself tolerating relationships or encounters that don't truly serve you because they provide the validation your ego needs. The emptiness you feel after physical encounters is often your deeper self recognizing that, while your ego's need for validation have been temporarily met, your soul's need to be valued for your full humanity remains unmet. It's the part of you that knows your worth more than just your ability to generate desire in others. Even if you haven't fully learned how to access the deeper source of worth, this belief is ready for expansion when you start to notice that the validation you receive from being desired, while pleasant, doesn't create lasting fulfillment. Your emptiness is actually pointing you toward the more sustainable source of worth that comes from self-acceptance, from being valued for your character, your kindness, your intelligence, your unique perspective on the world. The deepest and perhaps most painful belief that often underlies the pattern of seeking connection through physical means while avoiding emotional intimacy is the fear that if someone truly knows you, they will leave. This belief whispers that emotional intimacy is a trap, that once people see your authentic self with all its flaws, needs, and complexities, they will inevitably abandon you. This belief often has its roots in early experiences of abandonment, rejection, or conditional love. Maybe you experienced a parent who was physically present but emotionally unavailable, who seemed to withdraw their love when you were upset, needy, or difficult. Perhaps you had early friendships or relationships where sharing your true feelings resulted in rejection, mockery, or being told that you were too much to handle. Sometimes this belief develops not from dramatic abandonment, but from subtler experiences of emotional unavailability. Maybe you grew up in a family where emotional expression was discouraged, where vulnerability was seen as weakness, where the message was that love was safer when it remained on the surface. You might have learned that people stayed as long as you were easy to be with, but that showing your deeper struggles, fears, or needs caused them to pull away. This belief creates a particular kind of double bind in relationships. Part of you desperately wants to be known and understood, to share your inner world and have it received with love and acceptance. But another part of you is terrified that this very sharing will be what drives people away. So you learn to offer physical intimacy as a substitute for emotional intimacy, hoping to create connection while protecting yourself from the vulnerability that feels too dangerous. The manifestation of this belief often looks like being able to share your body with someone while keeping your emotional world carefully guarded. You might find yourself comfortable with sexual intimacy, but panicking when conversations turn to feelings, fears, dreams, or vulnerabilities. You can be physically naked, but emotionally clothed, offering access to your body while keeping your heart protected behind walls. You might notice patterns where relationships remain passionate and exciting as long as they stay relatively surface level. But as soon as someone starts wanting to know you more deeply, starts asking about your feelings or wanting to understand your inner world, you begin to feel claustrophobic, trapped, or compelled to pull away. The very intimacy you crave becomes the thing you fear most. This belief also manifests in the timing of when you allow physical versus emotional intimacy. You might find yourself comfortable being physically intimate very quickly, sometimes on the first meeting, but requiring months or even years before you feel safe sharing your deeper emotional world. Physical intimacy feels manageable because it doesn't require revealing the parts of yourself that you fear are unlovable. The protective logic of this belief is profound and understandable. If past experiences have taught you that emotional vulnerability leads to rejection or abandonment, then keeping this vulnerability separate from physical connection makes perfect sense. You can experience some of the benefits of intimacy without risking the parts of yourself that feel most fragile and essential to protect. But this protection comes with significant costs. When you consistently separate physical intimacy from emotional intimacy, you create relationships where you're partially known but never fully seen. You experience connection but not communion, physical pleasure but not soul-deep satisfaction. The very thing you're trying to protect, your authentic self, remains isolated and unfed. This belief also creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you hold back your emotional world, when you don't allow others to truly know you, they can't actually choose you for who you really are. They can only choose the partial version of you that you've shown them. This means that even when people do stay in relationship with you, part of you remains uncertain about whether they would still choose you if they knew the whole truth. Your nervous system recognizes this disconnection. Even when you're physically close to someone, if you're emotionally guarded, your deepest self remains alone. This is often why physical encounters that should feel connecting instead feel isolating. Your body is present, but your heart is in hiding. Your sexuality is engaged, but your soul is untouchable. The emptiness you feel after physical encounters is often your authentic self mourning its continued isolation. Even though intimacy happened, the parts of you that most need love and acceptance weren't present for it. It's like being invited to a feast, but having to watch through a window rather than participating fully. This belief also affects how you interpret others' behavior. When someone does try to get emotionally closer, your protective system might interpret this as dangerous rather than loving. Attempts at deeper intimacy can feel like threats rather than invitations. Questions about your feelings might feel like invasions rather than expressions of care. The fear of abandonment becomes a barrier to the very intimacy that could heal it. You need to be known and accepted for who you truly are to heal the wound of feeling unlovable. But the fear of being rejected for who you truly are prevents you from taking the risk necessary for this healing. Understanding this belief with compassion means recognizing that it developed in response to real experiences where emotional vulnerability led to pain. Your system isn't being dramatic or oversensitive. It's responding to actual data from your past about what happened when you opened your heart. The belief made sense given what you experienced, and it may have protected you from further emotional harm. But your adult self has resources and resilience that your younger self didn't have when this belief was formed. You now have the ability to choose your connections more carefully, to recognize red flags, to protect yourself while still allowing for intimacy. You can start with very small amounts of emotional vulnerability and notice that not everyone will abandon you for having feelings, needs, or struggles. The emptiness you feel is actually your authentic self calling you toward the healing that can only happen through being truly seen and still chosen. It's pointing you toward the possibility that emotional intimacy, while risky, might also be the pathway to the deep connection soul has always been seeking. Your fear of abandonment through emotional intimacy isn't something to overcome, but something to honor, while gently expanding. The same care you've shown in protecting your heart can now be used to slowly, carefully open it to the possibility that there are people in the world who can handle your full humanity with love and acceptance. These three core beliefs, while protective in their origins, often work together to create the cycle of seeking connection through physical means while feeling empty afterward. When you believe that emotional vulnerability is dangerous, that your worth depends on being desired, and that intimacy leads to abandonment, seeking connection through physical encounters while keeping your heart protected makes perfect sense. But, as we've explored, these beliefs, while protective, also limit your access to the deeper satisfaction that comes from being fully known and chosen. The emptiness you feel isn't a judgment on these beliefs, but a recognition that you might be ready for something more nourishing, something that honors both your need for safety and your soul's hunger for authentic connection. In our next section, we'll explore how to gently begin healing these patterns, how to honor the protective wisdom of these beliefs while slowly expanding your capacity for the kind of intimacy that can truly feed your deepest needs. The first phase of healing this pattern begins with the gentle art of recognition, learning to notice your patterns without immediately trying to fix or change them. This phase is about becoming a compassionate observer of your own experience, developing the kind of awareness that sees clearly without judgment, that notices without attacking. Recognition begins with paying attention to the moments before, during, and after physical encounters. Start noticing what you're truly seeking when you find yourself drawn to someone. Are you hungry for validation, for feeling desirable, for temporary escape from loneliness? Are you hoping that this encounter will finally fill the persistent ache inside you? There's no wrong answer here, only honest awareness of what's actually driving your choices. Notice the difference between genuine sexual desire and the desire for connection, validation, or escape that might be wearing the costume of sexual attraction. Sometimes what feels like intense sexual chemistry is actually your nervous system recognizing an opportunity to feel wanted, valued, or temporarily complete. Learning to distinguish between authentic sexual desire and these other needs is a crucial part of recognition. Pay attention to your internal experience during physical encounters. Are you fully present, or is part of you watching from a distance? Do you feel like you're performing a version of yourself, or are you authentically present? Notice if there's a sense of disconnection between what your body is doing and what your heart is feeling, between the physical intimacy and your emotional experience. The recognition phase also involves noticing the aftermath with gentle curiosity. When that familiar emptiness arises after an encounter, instead of judging yourself for feeling this way, try to get curious about what this emptiness is telling you. What need went unmet? What part of you feels unseen or unfed? This emptiness is information, not evidence that something is wrong with you. Begin to notice the stories you tell yourself about these experiences. Do you blame yourself for wanting too much? Do you minimize your needs for deeper connection as unrealistic or needy? Do you tell yourself that you should be satisfied with physical pleasure alone? These internal narratives often carry the voices of early caregivers, cultural messages, or past partners who might not have been capable of the deeper intimacy you crave. Recognition also means becoming aware of the protective strategies you've developed. Notice how you might automatically create emotional distance even during physical closeness. Observe how you might choose partners or situations where deeper intimacy isn't possible. where the structure itself protects you from having to risk emotional vulnerability. This phase requires enormous patience with yourself. You're learning to see patterns that may have been operating below your conscious awareness for years. Some of these patterns might be so familiar that they feel like fundamental parts of your personality rather than learned strategies that developed in response to particular circumstances. The goal of recognition isn't to immediately change anything, but simply to see clearly. It's about developing what Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron calls precision and gentleness, the ability to observe your experience with accuracy while maintaining compassion for yourself in the process. As you practice recognition, you might notice resistance arising. Part of you might prefer to remain unconscious about these patterns, because seeing them clearly means taking responsibility for them. Your protective system might worry that awareness will lead to judgment or pressure to change in ways that feel unsafe. Honor this resistance as another form of protection, while gently maintaining your commitment to seeing clearly. Remember that recognition itself is healing. The simple act of seeing your patterns with compassion rather than judgment begins to shift your relationship with them. When you can observe your protective strategies with appreciation for how they've tried to keep you safe, you create the internal conditions necessary for eventual change. The recognition phase might last weeks, months, or even longer. There's no timeline for awareness, no schedule for insight. Trust that your system will reveal what you're ready to see when you're ready to see it. The most important thing is maintaining curiosity rather than judgment, patience rather than pressure, compassion rather than criticism. Once you've begun to recognize your patterns with some clarity, the next phase involves developing a compassionate relationship with the parts of yourself that created these protective strategies. This phase is about meeting your protective system with appreciation rather than resistance, understanding rather than judgment. Think of the parts of yourself that seek connection through physical means as protective guardians who have been working tirelessly to keep you safe while still allowing you some form of intimacy. These parts developed their strategies based on the best information they had at the time, often when you were young and had fewer resources for protecting yourself, while still remaining open to connection. The part of you that seeks validation through being desired isn't shallow or broken. It's trying to ensure that you feel valuable and important in a world where worth can feel uncertain. The part that keeps emotional intimacy separate from physical intimacy isn't commitment phobic or damaged. It's trying to give you access to some form of closeness while protecting your most vulnerable emotional core from potential harm. Begin practicing internal conversations with these protective parts. You might imagine speaking to them as you would to a dear friend who has been carrying a heavy burden on your behalf. Thank them for their dedication, their creativity in finding ways to meet your needs while keeping you safe. Acknowledge the wisdom in their strategies, even if those strategies are no longer serving you in the same way. You might say something like, "I see how hard you've been working to help me feel connected, while protecting me from the possibility of emotional rejection. I appreciate how you found a way for me to experience some intimacy without having to risk the parts of me that felt too fragile to share." Your protective strategy made perfect sense given what we experienced. This compassionate meeting often brings up grief. You might feel sadness for the younger version of yourself who needed to develop these complex protective strategies, who couldn't trust that emotional vulnerability would be met with safety and acceptance. Allow this grief to move through you without trying to fix it or make it go away quickly. Grief is often how the heart processes what was lost and what was needed, but not received. As you develop this compassionate relationship with your protective parts, you might notice that they begin to relax slightly, when our protective strategies feel appreciated rather than attacked, they become more flexible, more willing to consider new approaches. This doesn't mean they'll immediately abandon their protective function, but they might become more collaborative in finding ways to meet your needs that include greater emotional intimacy. Practice extending this same compassion to the part of you that feels empty after physical encounters. This part isn't being ungrateful or impossible to please. It's the voice of your authentic self that knows you're capable of and deserving of deeper connection. This emptiness is actually a form of wisdom, your soul's way of saying, we need more than this to feel truly nourished. You might also need to offer compassion to the part of you that has judged these patterns, that has criticized yourself for feeling empty, for wanting more, for not being satisfied with what others might consider adequate. This critical voice often developed as another form of protection, trying to help you fit in, trying to minimize your needs to make yourself more acceptable to others. The compassion meeting phase often involves recognizing that you've been asking certain parts of yourself to do jobs they weren't designed for. You've been asking your sexuality to provide emotional intimacy, asking your physical connection to meet spiritual needs, asking your desirability to provide lasting self-worth. This isn't because you're confused or broken, but because these were the tools you had available given your circumstances and experiences. As you practice this internal compassion, you might find it helpful to speak to these parts as if they were beloved children who have been trying their best with limited resources. Children often develop creative, but ultimately limiting strategies for getting their needs met. The same creativity that helped you survive and find some form of connection and now be ready for an update that includes new possibilities. This phase also involves recognizing the positive intentions behind even the most challenging patterns. The part of you that might choose unavailable partners isn't trying to sabotage your happiness. It might be trying to give you practice with intimacy in a structure that feels manageable. The part that pulls away when someone wants to get emotionally closer isn't rejecting love. It might be trying to prevent the deeper pain of potential abandonment. Compassion meeting means appreciating the intelligence of your protective system, while also acknowledging that your adult self has resources and options that weren't available when these patterns were formed. You can honor the wisdom of your protective strategies, while also gently exploring whether they might be ready for expansion or modification. This phase often involves moments of profound self-acceptance. You begin to see that every part of you, even the parts that have created suffering, developed with the intention of helping you survive and find some form of love and connection. This recognition can create a foundation of inner safety that makes it possible to consider new approaches to intimacy and relationship. The goal isn't to eliminate your protective parts, but to develop a more collaborative relationship with them. Instead of these parts running the show automatically, you can begin to have conscious conversations with them about what you need in any given situation, about whether their protective strategies are still necessary or whether your adult self has other options available. As you practice compassion meeting, you're creating internal conditions that support healing. When your protective parts feel appreciated rather than attacked, when your authentic needs feel heard rather than dismissed, when your past strategies feel honored rather than shamed, you create the inner safety necessary for considering new possibilities in how you approach connection and intimacy. The integration phase begins when you start experimenting with small changes in how you approach connection, guided by your growing awareness and self-compassion. This isn't about dramatic transformation, but about gentle experiments that honor both your need for safety and your soul's hunger for authentic intimacy. Integration starts with very small steps, almost imperceptible shifts that allow you to test new approaches without overwhelming your protective system. You might begin by sharing one small authentic feeling during a conversation, noticing one genuine need without necessarily expressing it, or staying present for one moment longer during physical intimacy instead of immediately disconnecting. Emotionally. One of the first integration practices involves learning to pause before automatically moving toward physical connection. This doesn't mean abstaining from physical intimacy, but rather creating a moment of choice where you can check in with yourself about what you're truly seeking. Are you hungry for genuine connection with this particular person, or are you seeking validation, escape, or the temporary relief of feeling wanted? This pause allows you to make more conscious choices about how you engage. You might decide to proceed with physical intimacy, but with greater awareness of what you're hoping it will provide. You might choose to spend more time in conversation before moving toward physical connection, experimenting with letting someone see more of your personality, your thoughts, your authentic self. Integration also involves practicing what therapists call window of tolerance work, learning to stay present with slightly uncomfortable feelings rather than immediately seeking relief through physical connection or emotional numbing. When you feel lonely, instead of automatically reaching for your phone to connect with someone, you might sit with the loneliness for a few minutes, getting curious about what it's telling you about your deeper needs. Begin experimenting with sharing small truths about yourself in safe relationships. This might mean admitting to a friend that you sometimes feel lonely even when you're with people, or sharing with someone you trust that you've been questioning what you really want in relationships. These small moments of authenticity help you practice emotional vulnerability in low-stakes situations. The integration phase also involves paying attention to your nervous system's responses to different types of connection. Notice the difference in how your body feels when someone is interested in your thoughts versus when they're primarily interested in your body. Observe how your nervous system responds to conversations that go beneath the surface versus those that remain casual and light. You might begin to notice that your nervous system has been giving you information all along about which connections truly nourish you and which leave you feeling depleted. Your body might feel more relaxed and energized after conversations where you feel seen and understood, while feeling tense or empty after encounters that remain purely physical. Start experimenting with being more selective about your connections. This doesn't mean having impossibly high standards, but rather beginning to prioritize quality over quantity, depth over excitement, authentic compatibility over pure physical attraction. You might find yourself less interested in connections where emotional intimacy isn't possible and more drawn to people who seem curious about your inner world. Integration involves practicing self-advocacy in small ways. You might practice saying, "I'd love to talk more," before we move in that direction, when someone is pushing for immediate physical intimacy. Or you might experiment with sharing what you're actually thinking or feeling instead of automatically agreeing or going along with what seems to be expected. This phase often involves grief as you recognize what you've been missing, and anger as you realize how your protective strategies, while keeping you safe, have also limited your access to the deeper connection you crave. Allow these feelings to move through you without judging them or trying to make them go away quickly. They're part of the healing process. You might also experience resistance during integration, both from within yourself and from others in your life who are used to you showing up in particular ways. Your protective parts might feel nervous about these changes, worried that emotional vulnerability will lead to the rejection they've been working so hard to prevent. Some people in your life might prefer the version of you that was available for physical connection without emotional complexity. The key to successful integration is moving slowly enough that your protective system doesn't feel overwhelmed or threatened. Each small step you take toward greater authenticity and emotional availability should feel manageable, like a stretch rather than a break. Trust your own timing and don't let anyone, including yourself, pressure you to change faster than feels. Sustainable. Integration also means learning to celebrate small victories. Maybe you had a conversation where you shared something real about yourself, and the other person responded with interest rather than judgment. Maybe you noticed your pattern of seeking validation through sexual attention and chose to do something nurturing for yourself instead. These moments of conscious choice are significant steps toward the kind of connection your soul is seeking. Begin to notice that as you integrate small amounts of emotional authenticity into your connections, the physical intimacy that follows often feels more satisfying, more connected, more nourishing. When someone is attracted to more than just your physical self, when they're interested in your mind and heart as well as your body, the resulting intimacy can feel completely different from encounters that remain purely physical. The integration phase is ongoing and spiral rather than linear. You might find yourself moving back and forth between old patterns and new possibilities, and this is completely normal and expected. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line, and there's no timeline. For this process, trust that every moment of awareness, every small step toward authenticity, every choice to honor your deeper needs is moving you closer to the kind of connection that can truly satisfy your soul's hunger for intimacy. As you begin this gentle process of integration, you'll discover that healing happens not just in your mind and heart, but in your body as well. Your nervous system needs to learn new patterns of safety and connection, new ways of being present during intimacy that include your whole self rather than just your physical form. In our next section, we'll explore how to support this healing through body-based practices, how to change the relationship dynamics that have been shaped by your old patterns, and how to create sustainable practices that support your ongoing journey toward authentic intimacy. Your body holds the wisdom of every encounter you've ever had, every moment of connection and disconnection, every experience of being seen or unseen. As you begin to heal the pattern of seeking connection through physical means while feeling emotionally empty, your nervous system needs support in learning new patterns of safety, presence, and authentic intimacy. Body-based healing begins with learning to notice the difference between physical arousal and genuine desire for intimate connection with a specific person. Your body has been giving you information all along about what truly nourishes you versus what simply stimulates you temporarily. The challenge is that we often override these subtle signals in favor of the more obvious ones. Start by practicing moments of stillness before any physical encounter. Place your hand on your heart and take 3 deep breaths. Ask your body what it's truly seeking in this moment. Are you hungry for genuine connection with this person, or are you seeking validation, escape from difficult emotions, or relief from loneliness? Your body will often give you a clear answer if you pause long enough to listen. Notice the difference in how your nervous system responds to different types of attention. When someone is genuinely interested in you as a complete person, your body might feel more relaxed, more open, more naturally responsive. When someone is primarily interested in what you can provide physically, your nervous system might feel activated, but not necessarily safe, excited, but not necessarily nourished. Practice what somatic therapists call pendulation, the gentle movement between activation and calm during moments of physical intimacy, instead of automatically moving toward intensity or completion. Experiment with slowing down, breathing deeply, and staying present with the sensations in your body. Notice if you can remain connected to your emotional and spiritual self even during physical pleasure. Your body has likely learned to dissociate during physical encounters as a way of protecting your emotional self from potential hurt. You might notice that while your body is present and responsive, your heart and mind feel like they're watching from a distance. This protective mechanism served you when emotional vulnerability felt too dangerous, but it also prevents you from experiencing the full satisfaction that comes from integrated intimacy. Begin practicing embodied presence during non-sexual activities. When you're walking, eating, or even having conversations, notice if you can stay connected to the sensations in your body while also being emotionally and mentally present. This practice of integrated awareness during everyday activities makes it easier to remain embodied during intimate encounters. Breathwork can be particularly powerful for healing patterns around physical connection. Your breath is the bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, between your physical and emotional experience. When you learn to breathe consciously during intimate moments, you can stay present with your whole self rather than fragmenting into physical sensation and emotional protection. Practice the heart breath technique. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. Breathe slowly and deeply, imagining your breath moving in and out of your heart space. This practice helps you stay connected to your emotional center even during physical arousal. You can use this technique before, during, or after intimate encounters to maintain connection with your full self. Your nervous system also needs to learn what safety feels like in the context of intimate connection. Safety isn't the absence of vulnerability, but rather the presence of trust, respect, and genuine care. Begin to notice the difference between encounters that feel exciting but unsafe and those that feel both arousing and genuinely secure. Pay attention to your body's signals about pacing. Your nervous system might need intimate connection to develop more slowly, with more conversation, more emotional sharing, more time to assess whether this person is capable of holding your full humanity with care. Honor these signals rather than overriding them in favor of immediate physical gratification. Somatic experiencing teaches us that trauma and protective patterns are stored in the body and can be healed through gentle, conscious movement and sensation. If you've experienced sexual encounters that left you feeling empty or disconnected, your body might be holding protective tension or numbness. Gentle movement, conscious breathing, and practices like yoga or dance can help release these stored patterns. The goal isn't to eliminate physical desire or to make intimate connection overly complicated, but rather to help your body remember that it's part of a whole person who deserves to be met completely. When your nervous system learns that it's safe to be fully present during intimate connection, that vulnerability can be met with care rather than exploitation, physical intimacy becomes a pathway to deeper connection rather than a substitute for it. Begin to experiment with staying present for a few moments after physical intimacy instead of immediately disconnecting or moving into activity. Place your hand on your heart, breathe deeply, and notice what you're feeling emotionally. This practice helps integrate the physical experience with your emotional and spiritual self, reducing the likelihood of feeling empty afterward. Your body's wisdom about what truly nourishes you becomes clearer as you practice staying present and connected to your full self during intimate encounters. You might begin to notice that encounters where you feel seen and valued as a complete person leave your nervous system feeling calm and satisfied, while encounters that remain purely physical leave you feeling activated but unfulfilled. Remember that body-based healing is a gradual process. Your nervous system has been protecting you through disconnection for good reasons, and it needs time to learn that integration is safe. Be patient with your body as it learns new patterns of presence and connection. Trust that every moment of conscious embodiment, every breath that connects you to your heart, every choice to stay present with your full self is rewiring your nervous system toward greater capacity for authentic intimacy. As you begin to heal your patterns around seeking connection through physical means while remaining emotionally protected, you'll likely notice significant shifts in your relationship dynamics. The people in your life who were attracted to the version of you that was available for a physical connection without emotional complexity respond to your changes with confusion, resistance, or even rejection. Understanding and navigating these shifts is a crucial part of your healing journey. First, recognize that your healing might initially feel threatening to some people in your life. If they were used to accessing intimacy with you without having to offer emotional presence, depth, or genuine vulnerability in return, they might resist the changes you're making. Some people prefer connections that remain on the surface because depth requires more emotional resources than they're prepared or able to offer. You might find that, as you become more emotionally available and authentic, some relationships naturally fall away while others deepen significantly. This can be disorienting because you might lose connections that felt important, even if they weren't truly nourishing. The grief of losing these relationships is real and valid, even if you recognize intellectually that they weren't serving your deeper needs. People who were attracted to you primarily for physical connection or for the validation they received from being desired by you might lose interest as you become more selective about how you share your energy. This doesn't mean there was anything wrong with these connections, but rather that they were serving different needs than what you're now seeking. Conversely, you might find yourself attracting different types of people, individuals who are interested in your thoughts, your feelings, your authentic self. These connections might develop more slowly, but feel more sustainable and nourishing. You might notice that people who are capable of emotional intimacy don't pressure you for immediate physical connection, but rather seem genuinely curious about getting to know you as a complete person. As you practice greater emotional authenticity, you'll need to learn new communication skills. Instead of communicating primarily through physical attraction and sexual energy, you'll be learning to express your thoughts, feelings, needs, and boundaries directly. This can feel awkward at first, especially if you've been relying on nonverbal communication and physical connection as your primary love language. Practice expressing your needs clearly and directly, instead of hoping that physical intimacy will meet your emotional needs. Experiment with saying things like "I'm feeling disconnected and would love to talk about what's going on in our lives," or "I'm noticing I need more emotional intimacy before I feel ready for physical connection." This direct communication might feel vulnerable, but it's much more likely to get your actual needs met. You might also need to set new boundaries around physical intimacy. If you've been someone who was available for physical connection relatively quickly or easily, you might need to communicate that your approach is changing. This doesn't mean you're becoming prudish or that there's anything wrong with enjoying physical connection, but rather that you're choosing to integrate it with emotional intimacy in ways that feel more nourishing. Some people in your life might interpret these changes as rejection or judgment of past behaviors. They might feel criticized or abandoned when you start prioritizing different types of connection. Practice communicating that your changes aren't about judging others, but about honoring your own evolving needs and understanding of what truly nourishes you. The people who are meant to be in your life will generally support your healing and growth, even if it requires adjustments in how you relate to each other. They might be curious about your changes, willing to engage in deeper conversations, or interested in their own growth around intimacy and connection. These are the relationships worth investing in and developing. You might also find that your healing affects your relationship with yourself in profound ways. As you stop seeking validation through being desired and start developing genuine self-worth, you might feel less desperate for connection and more able to choose relationships that truly serve you. This can feel scary at first, because it means tolerating periods of being alone while you wait for connections that meet your deeper needs. Your relationship with sexuality itself might also shift. Instead of using sexual energy as a primary way of connecting with others, you might discover that your sexuality feels more integrated with your emotional and spiritual self. Physical intimacy might become more satisfying when it grows from emotional connection, rather than serving as a substitute for it. Be prepared for some people to not understand your changes, or to interpret them through their own fears and insecurities. Some might accuse you of becoming too demanding, too complicated, or too serious about relationships. Remember that these reactions often say more about their own discomfort with emotional intimacy than about the validity of your healing journey. As you navigate these relationship changes, it's important to have support from people who understand and celebrate your growth. This might include therapists, support groups, close friends who are on their own healing journeys, or communities of people who value depth and authenticity in relationships. Having witnesses to your growth can provide stability during periods when your relationship world feels uncertain. Remember that healthy relationships can accommodate growth and change. If someone truly cares about you, they'll generally be willing to adapt to your evolving needs, even if it requires some adjustment period. Relationships that can tolerate your authentic growth might not have been as healthy or sustainable as they initially appeared. The goal isn't to eliminate all casual or physical connections from your life, but rather to choose them consciously when they align with what you actually want, rather than serving as substitutes for unmet emotional needs. You might find that when physical connections are chosen from a place of wholeness rather than emptiness, they feel completely different and much more satisfying. Healing the pattern of seeking connection through physical means while feeling emotionally empty requires sustainable daily practices that support your ongoing growth and help you maintain connection with your authentic self. These practices create a foundation of inner stability that makes it easier to choose connections that truly nourish you, rather than settling for encounters that provide temporary relief from loneliness. Begin each day with a practice that connects you to your authentic self before you engage with others. This might be journaling about your genuine feelings and needs, meditation that helps you access your inner wisdom, or simply sitting quietly and asking yourself what you truly need today. Starting your day with this internal connection makes it less likely that you'll seek external validation to feel valuable or worthy. Develop a morning check-in practice where you ask yourself, what am I genuinely hungry for today? Sometimes the answer might be solitude, creative expression, meaningful conversation, or time in nature. When you're clear about what you actually need, you're less likely to mistake these needs for sexual desire or to seek fulfillment through physical connection, when what you really need is something else entirely. Practice the pause between feeling lonely and taking action to connect with others. When loneliness arises, instead of immediately reaching for your phone or seeking immediate company, sit with the feeling for a few minutes. Get curious about what the loneliness is telling you. Are you missing specific people? Do you need emotional intimacy, intellectual stimulation, or simply the comfort of being understood? This pause helps you make more conscious choices about how to address your actual needs. Develop practices that help you cultivate genuine self-worth, independent of external validation. This might include listing 3 things you appreciate about your character each day, engaging in activities that make you feel competent and valuable, or practicing positive self-talk that focuses on your intrinsic worth rather than your ability to attract others. The more genuinely you value yourself, the less you'll need others. Desire to feel worthy. Create regular practices for emotional expression and processing. This might be through journaling, art, movement, or conversations with trusted friends. When you have consistent outlets for your emotional world, you're less likely to feel emotionally congested or to seek release through physical encounters that don't actually address your emotional needs. Practice mindful social media consumption. Notice how scrolling through dating apps or social media affects your sense of worth, your feelings about your body, your hunger for validation. Consider taking regular breaks from these platforms, or using them more consciously, focusing on genuine connection rather than validation seeking. Develop what therapists call self-soothing practices for moments when you feel empty, lonely, or disconnected. This might include taking warm baths, listening to music that moves you, spending time in nature, or engaging in creative activities that help you feel connected to your authentic self. The more skilled you become at nourishing yourself, the less you'll seek this nourishment through encounters that leave you feeling empty. Practice emotional vulnerability in safe, non-romantic relationships. Share authentic feelings with trusted friends, family members, or support groups. The more comfortable you become with emotional intimacy in general, the easier it becomes to integrate this intimacy into romantic and physical relationships. Start small and build your tolerance for being seen and potentially rejected for your authentic self. Create rituals around physical intimacy that help you stay connected to your whole self. This might include taking time before encounters to check in with your authentic desires, practicing breathing techniques that keep you present during intimacy, or creating space afterward for emotional integration. These rituals help prevent the disconnection that often leads to feeling empty after physical encounters. Develop discernment practices that help you evaluate potential connections. Before engaging with someone new, ask yourself, does this person seem interested in me as a complete person? Do they ask questions about my thoughts, feelings, and life beyond the physical? Do I feel seen and valued in their presence, or primarily desired? Trust your intuitive responses to these questions. Practice saying no to connections that don't align with your deeper needs, even if they're flattering or temporarily exciting. This might mean declining invitations that you know will leave you feeling empty, ending conversations that remain superficial despite your attempts to deepen them, or choosing not to engage with people who seem interested only in what you can provide physically. Create weekly or monthly check-ins with yourself about your relationship patterns. Ask questions like, are my connections nourishing me or depleting me? Am I choosing partners who see and value my complete self? What patterns am I noticing in my relationships? This regular reflection helps you stay conscious about your choices rather than falling into automatic patterns. Develop a support system of people who understand and celebrate your commitment to authentic connection. This might include friends who are on similar healing journeys, therapy or support groups, or communities of people who value depth and emotional intimacy. Having witnesses to your growth provides encouragement during challenging periods. Practice celebrating small victories in your healing journey. Maybe you had a conversation where you shared something vulnerable and felt truly heard. Maybe you chose not to engage in a connection that would have left you feeling empty. Maybe you noticed your pattern early and made a different choice. Acknowledging these moments of growth reinforces your commitment to authentic connection. Create evening Practices that help you integrate the day's experiences. This might include journaling about your interactions, practicing gratitude for connections that nourished you, or simply breathing deeply and appreciating your courage in choosing authenticity over immediate gratification. These practices help consolidate your learning and prepare you for making conscious choices the next day. Remember that sustainable change happens through consistent small choices rather than dramatic transformations. Every time you choose authentic connection over validation seeking, every moment you stay present with your full self during intimacy, every decision to prioritize your deeper needs over immediate gratification is rewiring your neural pathways toward greater capacity for genuine intimacy. The goal of these practices isn't to eliminate spontaneity or joy from your connections, but rather to ensure that your choices come from wholeness rather than emptiness, from genuine desire rather than desperate need, from authentic self-expression rather than performance designed to maintain others' interest. When your daily life supports your connection to your authentic self, your relationships naturally become more nourishing and sustainable. These practices create a foundation of inner stability and authentic self-connection that makes it possible to choose relationships that truly nourish your soul, rather than simply providing temporary relief from loneliness or emptiness. As you integrate these approaches into your daily life, you begin to discover what it feels like to be chosen and loved for who you truly are rather than for what you can provide. In our final section, we'll explore how to integrate the wisdom you've gained through this healing journey, how to trust in your continued growth, and how to allow yourself to rest in the knowledge that you deserve the kind of love that sees and cherishes your complete humanity. As you rest in this liminal space between waking and sleeping, let's explore the profound transformation that occurs when you begin to approach intimacy as a sacred practice of becoming whole rather than a means of escaping emptiness. This shift represents nothing less than an alchemical process where the lead of disconnected encounters transforms into the gold of authentic soul-to-soul connection. The alchemy begins when you understand that true intimacy is not about losing yourself in another person, but about finding yourself more completely through the mirror of genuine connection. When someone sees and loves your authentic self, when they're curious about your inner world and celebrate your complexity, something magical happens within you. You begin to see yourself through eyes of love rather than judgment, acceptance rather than criticism. This transformation often feels like coming home to a part of yourself you'd forgotten existed. Perhaps as a child, you were naturally open, emotionally expressive, curious about others, and comfortable being curious about life. Experiences may have taught you to hide these qualities, to protect your tenderness behind walls of performance, or to seek connection through means that felt safer than emotional vulnerability. But your authentic self never disappeared. It simply went into hiding, waiting for conditions safe enough to emerge. When you begin to choose connections that honor your full humanity, when you risk being seen for who you truly are and discover that this authenticity is not just accepted, but celebrated, your hidden self begins to unfold like a flower that's been waiting for the right season to bloom. The alchemy of authentic intimacy transforms not just how you connect with others, but how you relate to yourself. When you experience being loved for your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, your struggles, your unique way of seeing the world, you develop a deeper appreciation for these aspects of yourself. You begin to value your emotional world, to trust your intuition, to honor your needs as valid and important. This internal transformation affects every area of your life. Your creativity may flourish as you feel safer expressing your authentic perspective. Your friendships may deepen as you bring more of your real self to these connections. Your relationship with your body may shift from seeing it as a tool for attracting others to appreciating it as the vehicle through which your soul experiences the world. The emptiness that once followed physical encounters begins to transform into a different kind of spaciousness, a sense of inner fullness that doesn't depend on external validation. This isn't the desperate emptiness of unmet need, but the peaceful emptiness of a vessel that's been filled and can now pour out love to others without depleting itself. You begin to understand that your sensitivity to incomplete connections was never a problem but a gift. Your ability to sense the difference between surface attraction and deep compatibility, between being desired and being loved, between temporary pleasure and lasting fulfillment becomes a sophisticated navigation system for creating relationships that truly nourish your soul. The alchemy continues as you realize that your journey through patterns of seeking connection through physical means, while feeling emotionally empty, was not a mistake or a detour, but a necessary part of your soul's education. These experiences taught you what you don't want, helped you develop discernment, and created within you a hunger for authenticity that now guides your choices. Every encounter that left you feeling empty was actually building your capacity to recognize and appreciate genuine connection when it appears. Every moment of feeling unseen was strengthening your ability to see others authentically. Every experience of disconnection was developing your understanding of what true intimacy requires. As this alchemical process continues, you may find that your very presence becomes healing for others who are struggling with similar patterns. Your commitment to authenticity gives others permission to drop their masks. Your willingness to be vulnerable creates safety for others to share their true selves. Your insistence on connections that honor your full humanity raises the standard for everyone around you. The transformation is ongoing, never complete, but always deepening. Each day brings new opportunities to choose wholeness over fragmentation, presence over performance, authentic connection over immediate gratification. Each choice strengthens your capacity for the kind of love that transforms rather than simply stimulates, that builds rather than consumes, that creates lasting satisfaction than temporary relief. Your journey toward authentic intimacy extends far beyond your personal healing. In a world where many people are caught in cycles of seeking connection through means that ultimately leave them feeling empty, your commitment to something deeper creates ripples that touch countless other lives in ways you may never fully know. Every time you choose to wait for genuine connection rather than settling for surface-level encounters, you're voting for a different kind of world. You're declaring that human beings deserve to be seen, known, and loved for who they truly are rather than just what they can provide. This declaration, lived through your choices, becomes a beacon for others who are also seeking something more authentic. Your healing contributes to what psychologist Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, the shared field of human experience and wisdom. When you transform patterns of disconnection into practices of authentic intimacy, you're not just changing your own life, but adding to the collective understanding of what healthy intimacy looks like. You become part of the solution to widespread cultural patterns of superficial connection. The people in your life are affected by your transformation in ways both obvious and subtle. Friends who watch you prioritize emotional intimacy alongside physical connection begin to examine their own relationship patterns. Family members who see you refusing to settle for connections that don't honor your full humanity may start to question their own compromises. Even strangers who encounter you may sense something different about your presence, a groundedness and authenticity that inspires them to be more real themselves. Your choice to heal patterns around seeking validation through being desired contributes to collective healing around self-worth and body image. In a culture that often reduces people to their physical attributes, your insistence on being valued for your complete self challenges these limiting perspectives. You become living proof that human worth extends far beyond physical appearance or sexual desirability. When you refuse to use physical connection as a substitute for emotional intimacy, you're helping to heal cultural wounds around sexuality and spirituality. You're demonstrating that sexuality and emotional depth are not mutually exclusive, but can be beautifully integrated. Your example helps others understand that honoring their sexuality doesn't require disconnecting from their hearts. Your journey also contributes to healing intergenerational patterns. The cycles of emotional unavailability, of seeking love through, means that ultimately create more loneliness, often pass from parents to children unconsciously. When you heal these patterns in yourself, you break the chain for future generations. Children who grow up witnessing your authentic relationships learn that love includes emotional presence, that intimacy involves being seen and understood, that their full humanity is worthy of celebration. The ripple effect extends to how you show up in all your relationships, not just romantic ones. Your growing capacity for emotional authenticity affects your friendships, your family relationships, your professional connections, people around. You begin to experience what it feels like to be truly seen and heard. And this experience often awakens their own hunger for deeper connection. Your healing also serves the collective by challenging cultural narratives that keep people trapped in unsatisfying patterns. The message that physical attraction should be enough, that emotional needs are excessive, that vulnerability is weakness. These narratives lose power when people like you demonstrate different possibilities. Your life becomes evidence that another way is not only possible but more fulfilling. Even your struggles and setbacks serve the collective healing. When you share your journey with others, when you speak honestly about the challenges of choosing authenticity over immediate gratification, you normalize the process of growth and change. You help others understand that healing isn't about perfection, but about consciousness, not about eliminating all difficulties, but about approaching them with greater wisdom and self-compassion. Your commitment to authentic intimacy also contributes to healing the masculine and feminine wounds that affect people of all genders. You're demonstrating that true strength includes emotional availability, that genuine power includes vulnerability, that real confidence comes from self-acceptance rather than external validation. These demonstrations help heal the splits between heart and mind, body and spirit, strength and tenderness that have caused so much suffering. The environmental effect of your healing might surprise you. When people feel genuinely connected to themselves and others, they often develop greater connection to the natural world as well. Your journey toward wholeness contributes to the collective, remembering that we are all interconnected, that healing ourselves is inseparable from healing our relationships and our planet. Your healing serves future generations who will inherit a world where more people understand the difference between connection and consumption, between love and possession, between intimacy and exploitation. Every person who heals these patterns makes it easier for others to recognize and choose authentic connection. The service you provide by healing is often invisible but profound. You may never know how your presence at a gathering helps someone feel safe to be more authentic. You may never realize how your refusal to engage in superficial connections inspired someone else to examine their own patterns. You may never see how your example of integrated sexuality and spirituality helped someone heal their own split between body and soul. Trust that your healing matters, not just for you, but for the web of life of which you are a part. Your commitment to authentic intimacy is a gift to a world hungry for genuine connection, a contribution to the collective evolution toward more conscious and caring ways of relating. As you drift toward sleep, understand that the journey you've undertaken tonight is not a linear path with a final destination, but a spiral of ever-deepening return to your authentic self and your capacity for genuine love. Like the ancient symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, your healing journey will bring you back to the same themes again and again, but each time from a place of greater wisdom and integration. You may find yourself facing similar patterns in the future, moments when the old pull towards seeking connection through physical means, while protecting your emotional self resurfaces. When this happens, don't see it as failure or regression, but as an opportunity to apply your growing wisdom with even greater skill and compassion. Each spiral return to familiar challenges allows you to heal at deeper levels, to integrate your understanding more completely. The ancient Greeks spoke of anamnesis, the soul's remembering of what it has always known. Your journey toward authentic intimacy is not about learning something entirely new, but about remembering what your soul has always known about love, connection, and your own worth. You're not becoming someone different, but uncovering who you've always been beneath the protective strategies you needed to develop. This remembering happens in waves, moments of clarity followed by periods of integration, breakthroughs followed by times of apparent plateau. Trust the rhythm of your own unfolding. Your soul knows exactly what it needs and when it needs it. There's no timeline for authentic transformation, no schedule for the heart's awakening to its own capacity for genuine love. As you continue on this spiral journey, you'll likely find that your standards for connection naturally evolve. What once felt exciting may begin to feel empty if it lacks depth. Encounters that would have satisfied you in the past may leave you feeling hungry for more substance. This isn't about becoming difficult to please, but about your soul's expanding capacity to recognize and receive the kind of love that truly nourishes. The eternal return also means that you'll have ongoing opportunities to practice the skills you've been developing. Each new connection offers a chance to stay present with your whole self, to communicate your authentic needs, to choose vulnerability over protection when it feels genuinely safe. Each relationship becomes a laboratory for practicing the art of integrated intimacy. You may also find yourself called to support others who are at earlier stages of this same journey. Your experiences with seeking connection through physical means, while feeling emotionally empty, uniquely qualify you to offer understanding and guidance to others struggling with similar patterns. Your healing becomes a gift you can share, not through advice or fixing, but through your presence and example. The cycles of deepening love include periods of solitude that are not lonely, but richly connected to your authentic self. You may find that your capacity to be alone without feeling desperate for external connection grows stronger. This solitude becomes not a retreat from love, but a return to the source of love within yourself, a recognition that you are already whole and complete even as you remain open to sharing that wholeness with others. Your relationship with your own sexuality will likely continue to evolve as well. You may discover that when physical intimacy grows from and includes emotional connection, it becomes a pathway to experiences of the sacred that you never knew were possible. Sexuality integrated with authentic intimacy can become a form of prayer, a celebration of the divine expressing itself through human connection. The eternal return includes cycles of giving and receiving love. As you become more skilled at recognizing and accepting authentic love, you also become more capable of offering this quality of love to others. Your healing creates a positive feedback loop, where your growing capacity to love authentically attracts and nurtures others' capacity for the same kind of love. There will be times when you feel like you've mastered these lessons, periods when authentic intimacy feels natural and easy. There will also be times when you feel like a beginner again, when old patterns resurface or new challenges test your commitment to wholeness. Both experiences are part of the eternal return, opportunities for deeper learning and more complete integration. The spiral nature of this journey means that you'll revisit themes of worth, vulnerability, protection, and connection throughout your life, but each time with greater resources, deeper understanding, and more sophisticated tools for navigation. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes natural. What once felt foreign becomes familiar. As you enter sleep tonight, trust in the eternal return of love to your life. Trust that your commitment to authentic intimacy will be supported by forces larger than yourself, by the universal longing for genuine connection that exists in all human hearts. Trust that every step you take toward wholeness makes the next step more possible, not just for you, but for everyone whose life you touch. Your dreams tonight may carry symbols and stories that support your ongoing transformation. Your unconscious mind knows how to continue the healing work even while you sleep. How to integrate tonight's insights into your cellular memory. How to prepare you for tomorrow's opportunities to choose love over fear, authenticity over performance, presence over protection. Rest now in the knowing that your journey toward authentic intimacy is both deeply personal and part of something much larger than yourself. You are a thread in the web of healing that is happening all over the world as more and more people awaken to their capacity for genuine love and connection. The eternal return brings you home to yourself again and again, each time with greater appreciation for the magnificent being you are, the love you're capable of both giving and receiving, and the sacred nature of the journey itself. Sleep well, beloved soul. Your transformation continues in the quiet depths of rest, and love awaits your awakening. As we reach the end of our exploration together tonight, take a moment to appreciate the courage it has taken to look honestly at patterns that many people never examine. You've been willing to question not just your behaviors, but the deeper beliefs and protective strategies that have been guiding your choices around intimacy and connection. This kind of self-examination requires tremendous bravery and reflects the strength of your commitment to living authentically. The emptiness you've been feeling after physical encounters isn't a character flaw or a sign that you're impossible to please. It's actually evidence of your soul's wisdom, your deeper self's recognition that you're capable of and deserving of more nourishing forms of connection. Your dissatisfaction has been a compass pointing toward what you truly need, a reminder that you're wired for authentic intimacy that includes your heart, mind, and spirit along with your body. You've discovered that the protective strategies you developed made perfect sense given your experiences and the resources you had available. Seeking connection through physical means, while protecting your emotional self, was a brilliant adaptation that allowed you to experience some form of intimacy while keeping your most vulnerable parts safe. These strategies served you during times when emotional vulnerability felt too dangerous, and they deserve appreciation rather than judgment. Now you understand that the same strategies that once protected you might be limiting your access to the deeper satisfaction that comes from being truly known and chosen for who you are. This recognition doesn't mean abandoning your protective wisdom, but rather expanding it to include new possibilities for safety within authentic intimacy. You've learned that healing isn't about eliminating your need for connection or becoming invulnerable to the pain that can come with intimacy. Instead, It's about developing the capacity to stay present with your whole self during connection, to risk being seen authentically while maintaining healthy boundaries, to choose relationships that honor your complete humanity rather than just your physical form. The journey toward authentic intimacy isn't a destination, but an ongoing practice of choosing wholeness over fragmentation, presence over protection, genuine connection over immediate gratification. Every small step you take toward emotional authenticity, every moment you stay present with your full self during intimacy, every choice to prioritize your deeper needs is rewiring your capacity for the kind of love that truly nourishes. Remember that this healing happens in spirals rather than straight lines. You might find yourself moving back and forth between old patterns and new possibilities, and this is completely normal and expected. Growth requires practice, patience, and tremendous self-compassion. Trust that every moment of awareness, every choice made from consciousness rather than automatic reaction, is moving you closer to the authentic connection your soul craves. You are not broken, and you never were. You are a complete human being whose needs for emotional intimacy, spiritual connection, and genuine understanding are not too much or unrealistic. You deserve to be seen, known, and chosen for the full complexity of who you are. Your sensitivity to the difference between surface connection and deep intimacy is a gift, not a burden. The people who are meant to be in your life will celebrate your authenticity rather than being threatened by it. They will be curious about your inner world, interested in your thoughts and feelings, capable of meeting you in the depths as well as at the surface. These connections might be rarer than the purely physical encounters you've experienced, but they will be infinitely more nourishing and sustainable. As you continue on this journey, trust your body's wisdom about what truly feeds you versus what simply stimulates you temporarily. Trust your heart's ability to distinguish between being desired and being loved, between being wanted and being valued. Trust your mind's capacity to recognize when someone is interested in your complete self, rather than just what you can provide physically. Your emptiness has been your teacher, pointing you toward what your soul truly needs. Your protective strategies have been your guardians, keeping you safe while you develop the resources necessary for greater vulnerability. Your desire for authentic connection has been your compass, guiding you toward relationships that can truly satisfy your hunger for genuine intimacy. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, carry with you the understanding that you are worthy of love that sees and cherishes every part of you. You deserve connection that nourishes your body, heart, mind, and spirit. You are capable of the kind of intimacy that creates more connection rather than more loneliness, more wholeness rather than more fragmentation. Now, as we prepare to transition into sleep, let's create a gentle bridge between the insights you've gained tonight and the restorative rest your body and soul need. The healing we've explored doesn't stop when you close your eyes. It continues in the quiet spaces of sleep, where your unconscious mind can integrate new understandings and your nervous system can practice new patterns of safety and connection. Begin by taking 3 deep, slow breaths, allowing each exhale to release any tension you might be holding from our exploration tonight. You don't need to carry the weight of this work into your sleep. The insights you've gained are now part of you, and they will continue to unfold naturally in their own time. There's no pressure to remember everything perfectly or to change everything immediately. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, feeling the gentle rhythm of your breath as it moves through your body. With each breath, imagine that you're breathing in peace and breathing out any self-judgment, any pressure to be different than you are right now. You are exactly where you need to be in your healing journey, and your soul knows how to integrate these new understandings at the perfect pace for you. As you settle more deeply into rest, imagine that your authentic self, the part of you that has been waiting patiently behind all the protective strategies, is finally being welcomed home. This part of you that knows the difference between surface connection and deep intimacy. This part that recognizes your worth beyond your ability to attract or please others. This part that hungers for genuine love and understanding is safe to emerge now. Feel the relief in your nervous system. You give yourself permission to want authentic connection, to need emotional intimacy, to require being seen and valued for who you truly are. These needs aren't excessive or unrealistic. They're the natural requirements of a human soul that knows it deserves to be fully met and completely loved. Imagine that as you sleep tonight, your unconscious mind is gently rewiring the neural pathways that have been guiding your choices around connection and intimacy. Old patterns that no longer serve you are being softly dissolved, while new possibilities for authentic relationship are being strengthened and supported. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into the knowing that you are lovable for what you can provide, but for who you are. Your worth doesn't depend on being desired. It exists simply because you exist. Your value doesn't fluctuate based on others' interest in you. It remains constant like the deep, still waters of a mountain lake. As your body begins to relax more completely, imagine that you're surrounded by an invisible field of protection that allows love in while keeping harm out. This protection isn't built from walls that keep you isolated, but from wisdom that helps you recognize which connections will nourish you and which will leave you empty. You're learning to trust your inner knowing about what truly feeds your soul. Feel yourself releasing any urgency around finding the perfect relationship, healing all your patterns immediately. Healing happens in its own mysterious timing, and your soul knows exactly what it needs and when it needs it. You can rest in the trust that your desire for authentic connection is already drawing the right people and experiences towards you. Let your breathing become even slower and deeper, allowing each exhale to carry away any residual emptiness or loneliness. You are not alone in your desire for genuine intimacy. Millions of people around the world are also seeking connection that honors their complete humanity, and your healing contributes to the collective awakening toward more authentic ways of loving. As sleep begins to approach, imagine that your future self, the version of you that has learned to choose connections that truly nourish, is sending you love and encouragement. This future self wants you to know that every step you take toward authenticity, every moment you honor your deeper needs, every choice to wait for genuine connection rather than settling for empty encounters, is leading you closer to the love you deserve. Feel yourself wrapped in the gentle embrace of your own compassion, held by the understanding that you are a precious soul deserving of the deepest forms of love and connection. Your sensitivity to emptiness after physical encounters isn't a burden, but a gift that guides you toward what truly satisfies your hungry heart. Allow your mind to become quiet now, knowing that the work of integration will continue effortlessly. As you sleep, your unconscious wisdom knows how to weave tonight's insights into the fabric of your daily life, how to support your growing capacity for authentic intimacy, how to help you recognize and choose connections that see and celebrate your complete self. With each breath, feel yourself becoming lighter, more peaceful, more trusting in your own capacity for healing and growth. You are held by forces larger than yourself, supported by the universal human longing for genuine connection, carried by the love that exists not just between people, but within the very fabric of existence itself. As you drift toward sleep, carry with you the gentle affirmation that you are worthy of love, that sees you completely, chooses you fully, and celebrates the beautiful complexity of who you are. Your journey toward authentic intimacy is sacred work, and you are exactly where you need to be. Let sleep come naturally now, knowing that you are safe, you are loved, and you are growing in beautiful ways. Your dreams tonight may carry wisdom about connection and intimacy, helping you integrate tonight's insights in the mysterious realm of sleep. Trust in this process, trust in your own healing capacity, and trust that love that truly nourishes is finding its way to you. Rest now. Precious soul, your authentic self is finally coming home, and the love you've been seeking has been waiting patiently for you to recognize that you deserve nothing less than complete acceptance, understanding, and cherishing for all of who you are. Sleep deeply, dream gently, and wake tomorrow knowing that you are worthy of the deepest forms of love this world has to offer. The emptiness that brought you here tonight has served its purpose perfectly, guiding you toward the fullness that awaits. As we reach the end of our exploration together tonight, take a moment to appreciate the courage it's taken to look honestly at patterns that many people never examine. You've been willing to question not just your behaviors, but the deeper beliefs and protective strategies that have been guiding your choices around intimacy and connection. This kind of self-examination requires tremendous bravery and reflects the strength of your commitment to living authentically. The emptiness you've been feeling after physical encounters isn't a character flaw or a sign that you're impossible to please. It's actually evidence of your soul's wisdom, your deeper self's recognition that you're capable of and deserving of more nourishing forms of connection. Your dissatisfaction has been a compass pointing toward what you truly need, a reminder that you're wired for authentic intimacy that includes your heart, mind, and spirit along with your body. You've discovered that the protective strategies you developed made perfect sense given your experiences and the resources you had available. Seeking connection through physical means while protecting your emotional self was a brilliant adaptation that allowed you to experience some form of intimacy while keeping your most vulnerable parts safe. These strategies served you during times when emotional vulnerability felt dangerous, and they deserve appreciation rather than judgment. Now you understand that the same strategies that once protected you might be limiting your access to the deeper satisfaction that comes from being truly known and chosen for who you are. This recognition doesn't mean abandoning your protective wisdom, but rather expanding it to include new possibilities for safety within authentic intimacy. You've learned that healing isn't about eliminating your need for connection or becoming invulnerable to the pain that can come with intimacy. Instead, it's about developing the capacity to stay present with your whole self during connection, to risk being seen authentically while maintaining healthy boundaries, to choose relationships that honor your complete humanity rather than just your physical form. The journey toward authentic intimacy isn't a destination, but an ongoing practice of choosing wholeness over fragmentation, presence over protection, genuine connection over immediate gratification. Every small step you take toward emotional authenticity, every moment you stay present with your full self during intimacy, every choice to prioritize your deeper needs is rewiring your capacity for the kind of love that truly nourishes. Remember that this healing happens in spirals rather than straight lines. You might find yourself moving back and forth between old patterns and new possibilities, and this is completely normal and expected. Growth requires practice, patience, and tremendous self-compassion. Trust that every moment of awareness, every choice made from consciousness rather than automatic reaction, is moving you closer to the authentic connection your soul craves. You are not broken, and you never were. You are a complete human being whose needs for emotional intimacy spiritual connection, and genuine understanding are not too much or unrealistic. You deserve to be seen, known, and chosen for the full complexity of who you are. Your sensitivity to the difference between surface connection and deep intimacy is a gift, not a burden. The people who are meant to be in your life will celebrate your authenticity rather than being threatened by it. They will be curious about your inner world, interested in your thoughts and feelings, capable of meeting you in the depths as well as at the surface. These connections might be rarer than the purely physical encounters you've experienced, but they will be infinitely more nourishing and sustainable. As you continue on this journey, trust your body's wisdom about what truly feeds you versus what simply stimulates you temporarily. Trust your heart's ability to distinguish between being desired and being loved, between being wanted and being valued. Trust your mind's capacity to recognize when someone is interested in your complete self, rather than just what you can provide physically. Your emptiness has been your teacher, pointing you toward what your soul truly needs. Your protective strategies have been your guardians, keeping you safe while you develop the resources necessary for greater vulnerability. Your desire for authentic connection has been your compass, guiding you toward relationships that can truly satisfy your hunger for genuine intimacy. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, carry with you the understanding that you are worthy of love that sees and cherishes every part of you. You deserve connection that nourishes your body, heart, mind, and spirit. You are capable of the kind of intimacy that creates more connection rather than more loneliness, more wholeness rather than more fragmentation. Now, as we prepare to transition into sleep, let's create a gentle bridge between the insights you've gained tonight and the restorative rest your body and soul need. The healing we've explored doesn't stop when you close your eyes. It continues in the quiet spaces of sleep, where your unconscious mind can integrate new understandings and your nervous system can practice new patterns of safety and connection. Begin by taking 3 deep, slow breaths, allowing each exhale to release any tension you might be holding from our exploration tonight. You don't need to carry the weight of this work into your sleep. The insights you've gained are now part of you, and they will continue to unfold naturally in their own time. There's no pressure to remember everything perfectly or to change everything immediately. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, feeling the gentle rhythm of your breath as it moves through your body. With each breath, imagine that you're breathing in peace and breathing out any self-judgment, any pressure to be different than you are right now. You are exactly where you need to be in your healing journey, and your soul knows how to integrate these new understandings at the perfect pace for you. As you settle more deeply into rest, imagine that your authentic self, the part of you that has been waiting patiently behind all the protective strategies, is finally being welcomed home. This part of you that knows the difference between surface connection and deep intimacy. This part that recognizes your worth beyond your ability to attract or please others. This part that hungers for genuine love and understanding is safe to emerge now. Feel the relief in your nervous system as you give yourself permission to want authentic connection, to need emotional intimacy, to require being seen and valued for who you truly are. These needs aren't excessive or unrealistic. They're the natural requirements of a human soul that knows it deserves to be fully met and completely loved. Imagine that as you sleep tonight, your unconscious mind is gently rewiring the neural pathways that have been guiding your choices around connection and intimacy. Old patterns that no longer serve you are being softly dissolved, while new possibilities for authentic relationship are being strengthened and supported. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into the knowing that you are lovable not for what you can provide, but for who you are. Your worth doesn't depend on being desired. It exists simply because you exist. Your value doesn't fluctuate based on others' interest in you. It remains constant like the deep, still waters of a mountain lake. As your body begins to relax more completely, imagine that you're surrounded by an invisible field of protection that allows love in while keeping harm out. This protection isn't built from walls that keep you isolated, but from wisdom that helps you recognize which connections will nourish you and which will leave you empty. You're learning to trust your inner knowing about what truly feeds your soul. Feel yourself releasing any urgency around finding the perfect relationship, healing all your patterns immediately. Healing happens in its own mysterious timing, and your soul knows exactly what it needs and when it needs it. You can rest in the trust that your desire for authentic connection is already drawing the right people and experiences towards you. Let your breathing become even slower and deeper, allowing each exhale to carry away any residual emptiness or loneliness. You are not alone in your desire for genuine intimacy. Millions of people around the world are also seeking connection that honors their complete humanity, and your healing contributes to the collective awakening toward more authentic ways of loving. As sleep begins to approach, imagine that your future self, the version of you that has learned to choose connections that truly nourish, is sending you love and encouragement. This future self wants you to know that every step you take toward authenticity, every moment you honor your deeper needs, every choice to wait for genuine connection rather than settling for empty encounters, is leading you closer to the love you deserve. Feel yourself wrapped in the gentle embrace of your own compassion, held by the understanding that you are a precious soul deserving of the deepest forms of love and connection. Your sensitivity to emptiness after physical encounters isn't a burden, but a gift that guides you toward what truly satisfies your hungry heart. Allow your mind to become quiet now, knowing that the work of integration will continue effortlessly. As you sleep, your unconscious wisdom knows how to weave tonight's insights into the fabric of your daily life, how to support your growing capacity for authentic intimacy, how to help you recognize and choose connections that see and celebrate your complete self with each breath. Feel yourself becoming lighter, more peaceful, more trusting in your own capacity for healing and growth. You are held by forces larger than yourself, supported by the universal human longing for genuine connection, carried by the love that exists not just between people, but within the very fabric of existence itself. As you drift toward sleep, carry with you the gentle affirmation that you are worthy of love that sees you completely, chooses you fully, and celebrates the beautiful complexity of who you are. Your journey toward authentic intimacy is sacred work, and you are exactly where you need to be. Let sleep come naturally now, knowing that you are safe, you are loved, and you are growing in beautiful ways. Your dreams tonight may carry wisdom about connection and intimacy, helping you integrate tonight's insights in the mysterious realm of sleep. Trust in this process, trust in your own healing capacity, and trust that love that truly nourishes is finding its way to you. Rest now. Precious soul, your authentic self is finally coming home, and the love you've been seeking has been waiting patiently for you to recognize that you deserve nothing less than complete acceptance, understanding, and cherishing for all of who you are. Sleep deeply, dream gently, and wake tomorrow knowing that you are worthy of the deepest forms of love this world has to offer. The emptiness that brought you here tonight has served its purpose perfectly, guiding you toward the fullness that awaits. Good night.